What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ToyShopFab. And on this video, we're changing a 4L60E torque converter input seal. First, we got to get it out of this truck. Yep, that's right. We're changing the input seal for the 4L60E torque converter on this old Chevy pickup truck. And we're doing that because, well, here's why. I'm going to show you guys what this truck is doing. As you can see, as it's running, if you get up here with our little inspection covers, you can see it has a small little drip that I am not catching. Right? So that is what's happening, and what I am hoping is what's going on is that, well, this seal is kind of dried out. It's no longer sealing against the torque converter, and that's what's causing the drip. Now there could be another explanation on what's going on here too, and I'm going to show you guys over here on this transmission I have sitting on this little stand. So here's what is similar to what is inside that pickup truck. You got the removable bell housing, front pump, and here is where our seal sits. This guy right here. You pop this cage off, you can get a screwdriver or a seal remover underneath this guy, pop it out, and you can change that real quick. Now that, fingers crossed, I'm hoping is what the problem is. Otherwise, this pump here has an O-ring seal and a gasket, and it's very, very possible to have a slight weep or a leak from between the pump and the case caused by a faulty gasket, or a gasket that's just, it's old. Lots and lots of heat cycles and things like that tend to happen to rubber seals. So, but my fingers are hoping it does. It is this guy right here. Now when you get it in the case and where the torque converter rides, so here's the snout of our 4L60E torque converter. Here is our seal, and it is installed lip towards the torque converter, so it's very easy to, it's hard to mess this up installing it on the transmission, but because it's out of the transmission, I'm just going to show you guys here. So you got this little lip, it kind of pokes outwards. That's what always goes towards the torque converter, in case, you know, just in case you do get a seal without that lip. But we'll install this guy right here, and yes, there is a little bit of transmission fluid on here. Don't want to damage the seal. And that is where it rides. So the torque converter slides into that seal, and it is constantly spinning against this rubber seal. And after many, many, many heat cycles, you'll see, because it's nice and pliable right now, but after a lot of heat cycles, rubber tends to get a little bit hard, and it'll develop a little crack or something inside this area. So, just a little bit of information for you in case you're wondering how to tell or how this all gets put together, because I know some of you have been on the highway driving. You'll get a little puff of smoke, pull over, and you'll see a little drip. Come out one morning, you'll see a little drip too, because you didn't notice it, or it just wasn't smoking or anything like that, and overnight it had a little weep and drips. That is a very, very possible chance that your seal is bad. That, and I want you to have a little piece of information just in case too, you know, you're not the one that changes it out. You take it somewhere, right? Give you a thought, food for thought, maybe ask a couple questions. So, but we're going to get up underneath this truck. I'm going to grab some tools, get up underneath this truck, and show you everything that I'm going to have to remove in order to get this transmission back far enough for me to remove the torque converter, remove the old seal, and inspect. So let me gather some tools up, and I'll show you guys what I'm going after. All right, we got all our tool sizes we're going to need. Also got a light under here as well to give us plenty of vision to help us see everything we need to see. Truck is supported in the air by these big old jack stands here, and I do have a chock underneath the back tire. So now that we got all that done, next thing I'm going to want to do, grab yourself an 8mm or 5/16. Get up into here, and usually that's what would work for these battery terminals here, but that one's a little, she's been well used. So vice grips. That's going to be the next thing. There we go. That's better. Go ahead and disconnect the negative side of your battery. That's the one that you can grab a hold of. And if you have vice grips, slips, and it hits anything metal or not, anything like that, it is not going to short anything out. So go ahead and disconnect the negative side there. Put your little terminal to the side. Normally I don't think that comes out, but if it does, just put it to the side. Okay. Now we have no power going to the truck. And now that we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to hop up underneath here, because the next thing you're going to want to remove is the starter. Now, you're going to want to do that because the torque converter has 3 bolts holding it to the flex plate on the back of the engine. And you need the starter out of the way to access those 3 bolts. So the starter bolts for this truck is normally 13 millimeter. So grab a ratchet or a little impact, something like that, to help you remove those bolts. Get this guy set up here. All right, let's hop up underneath. Let's go over there to the starter. All right, so there is our starter bolts. We've got 1, 2. We'll get those out. That way we can drop the starter and see if we can't get it out of the way just far enough so we can get in there and access our torque converter bolts. If not, then we will disconnect it from up here, which is usually another 13 millimeter for our battery cable, and a 8 millimeter or 5/16 for the start side of our starter relay up there, or starter solenoid. So, but let's go ahead and get these guys out. Let it drop. Probably should use an extension. That's better. Go ahead and get that guy out. That one seems tight, so let's see if I got a ratchet in here. There we go. Break it free with the ratchet. Okay, starter bolts are out. Now let's see if this guy will move just far enough out of the way for us to access our torque converter bolts. And it does not look like I have all kinds of room. Let's see, maybe I just... Nope. So what I'll have to do is I'll get my hands up there. So you can see at the very top of our starter here. Oops. I get a light in there from the other side. There we go. So you can see the cables go right there. There is a 13 millimeter right there. And on the top side, I believe, is either a push plug or an 8 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and get those disconnected. I'll be right back. All right, so I did not end up having to disconnect the cables, but there is the 13, and then there is the 8 millimeter right there in case you have to. Now, once those 2 cables are undone, that should give enough room for the starter to pull out of the way and give you plenty of room to get to that guy. Now, we got lucky because this guy is not only a 8 millimeter Allen on the inside there, if I can get the camera to focus. There you go. Now on the inside of that is an Allen, and this is a bolt. So it is either an 8 millimeter Allen or a 15 millimeter bolt. Come on, focus. There you go. It's trying. So that is what that is. Now there are 2 different styles of torque converter bolt. We got that style right there, which gives us 2 options of getting it out. The other style is gonna be, I went and grabbed him so I could show you, is this guy right here. As you can see, it is just round, and it is a Allen center. So There are two options there, and like I said, this is an 8mm Allen or 5/16 if you don't have it, and that fits our torque converter bolts there. So we got lucky. We're going to end up using a 15mm wrench to get it out. Now once we got that bolt out there, you're going to want to rotate the flex plate around. Now the 4L60E transmissions have 3 of those bolts on the flex plate, and what I have up front there is a ratchet with a 24mm socket on that front bolt, and that allows me to hold back up if I need it to loosen that bolt up there. And once that's out, it allows me to rotate the engine over. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those 3 bolts out of our flex plate right now. That is out of the way. Once that is out of the way and done, I will bring you guys back in and show you the next step I'm gonna do, or the next step I'm gonna take to get this transmission out. So let me get those out and I'll be right back. All right, all of our torque converter bolts are out. Now you can get in here with our little inspection cover, our front one here, and you can kind of look inside. You can see our torque converter is away from our flex plate there, if our little camera would focus. But what I like to do is get my hand in there, push our torque converter back, and just kind of rotate. You can see this one is moving. I like to move the torque converter a little bit just to kind of feel, to see if it's in any kind of bind whatsoever, because if we did feel a bind, then it could indicate a pump problem with our transmission, or worse, maybe some kind of engine problem. But this one feels really, really good. It is not binding whatsoever. So that is good news. Next thing I want to do is get our drive shaft out of this truck. Now, your truck may or may not have one of these guys here, which is our pillow bearing. So we have a 2-piece drive shaft in this truck. This is a crew cab, or a quad. It's got the 4 doors, so it does have a 2-piece drive shaft. Single cabs usually, I do not believe, are just a single piece drive shaft. So, but to make life easier, before you undo this guy here, if you do end up having a 2-piece, we're going to go ahead and disconnect it from our pumpkin here. Now the straps for these guys are usually an 11mm. We'll get those undone, and our pillow block up there is going to support the center of our 2-piece, which is going to make it easier to get these undone and out. Once all 4 of these are undone and out, then we can get to this guy up here, which is a 15mm up on top, I believe. Let me grab a wrench so I can double check. Grab our 15mm wrench. Yep. So these guys up here are 15s. If you have a 2-piece, get the 11s undone from the back. That way you can let that drop. Be easier for you to come up here, use your leg or something to support the center of this while you undo these 2 guys here. Once those are undone, you will be able to pull your drive shaft out of the transmission and get it out of the way. But before you do that, make sure you get a drip pan of some sort underneath this tail shaft housing here, because if you have not leaked out all your fluid already, you will once this guy is removed. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything undone, get the drive shaft out. We'll be right back. All right, now that our drive shaft has been removed, now this one, I just got a little drip out of there. So this transmission is obviously low, especially being it's sitting at an angle, but that's all right. Didn't make that too much of a mess, just that guy right there. So now that our drive shaft is out, next thing I want to do is there is a 15mm up inside here I want to get undone. And then I can bring in a floor jack with a piece of wood on it, 2x4, 4x4, something that'll span most of the width of this pan, because I want to pick up on this a little bit to get the weight off off of our mount back here. And then I want to remove these guys here. So we have two 21 millimeter. Double check that real quick. Should have a wrench in here somewhere. There we go. 21 millimeter. Yep. So I want to remove it's 21 millimeter on each side, the nut and the bolt. Get those out. That way we can get this cross member out of the way. And once that cross member is out of the way, I'll go ahead and remove these two bolts right here, which I believe are a 15 millimeter. Let me grab a wrench and double check. Let's see. So, grab our nuts on this side. Yep, these are a 15 millimeter on this side. Once those are undone, we can get our 15 millimeters off of our manifolds to our Y pipe. So we have 1, 2, 3. Same as this side, 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget to unplug your O2 sensor. So the one on this side will be plugged in right there, just on the side of our transmission. You're going to have another one right here. Follow that guy back. He's going to be plugged in on top of our cross member right here. You're going to have another O2 sensor back here towards the end of our Y pipe. And that guy gets plugged in just right up there. And then we have one more right here on our co-pilot side, right before entering the catalytic converter. And that plug-in is going to be right here above our first cab mount. So make sure you get all those unplugged. You do not want to ruin or tear your pigtails for your O2 sensors, because then that could get costly. So, but we'll get that 15 out, get these 4 21s out, get a floor jack underneath here to support our transmission. That way we can remove all these bolts, get this cross member out of the truck, and then remove our Y pipe and give us much more room to work with this transmission. Now, you may or may not have to, but personally, since we're on the ground using this little roller here, it does make life much easier, much simpler to give yourself as much room as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all those bolts out, get our cross member out, get that Y pipe off, and we'll be back for the next step. All right, our Y pipe has been removed, as well as our cross member. Now, one thing I should mention is before you remove that transmission cross member, make sure you have at least another floor jack with a block of wood that you can put underneath the oil pan to help support all of this weight. As of right now, that transmission, or that floor jack right there with that wood, and the motor mounts are what's supporting this entire transmission right now, and that's fine. If that transmission was not there, all of this would probably be on the ground, and you would make a terrible mess because there is nothing supporting the transmission right now. As of right now, the only thing supporting the transmission are the 5 15 millimeter bolts at the back, or in the bell housing to the back of the engine. So make sure you have a floor jack or a scissor jack or a jack stand. You have something that you can adjust to help support all of this weight. So once you got the bottom of the oil pan supported, you can go ahead and then remove this cross member, which will allow you to remove your Y pipe, giving you all of this room to work. And once I am ready, I will put this guy underneath our transmission pan. Now this is one of those, I believe it's from Harbor Freight. It's just one of those universal style transmission holder jacks that you can bolt right in place on your normal floor jack. You just pull that little guy off there. There's an Allen that pulls that disc off up on top, which is that guy right there, and then this gets bolted to in that place. And that will be put underneath our transmission pan. It's got the little slot so you can use ratchet straps or chains, something to help secure your transmission to our floor jack, transmission jack. So, but, all right. Now that we've got all of that out of the way, the next thing I'm gonna wanna do to help clear everything up is now we're gonna go ahead and start disconnecting all of our lines here. So our electrical, we're just gonna undo that guy here. Up in there is our plug for our transmission. Now, you can see this little arrow right here on the sides. If you squeeze and pick straight up, it will unplug. So, and then you go up and around this guy here, you're gonna see on the driver's side or the pilot side of the truck, we've got more here. We've got our shift selector right here. Go ahead and undo that guy. Get him unplugged. Now, most of the time, these guys have got a sealant in there and they're gonna be a pain to get out. So keep that in mind. What I'll just do is I'll undo it and just kind of sit here and work it back and forth, but it's kind of like a glue. So be very, very careful. Don't pull on the wires themselves, because there is a chance of you pulling the wires out of the little sockets in there and damaging this plug completely. So if you got a little regular screwdriver or a little pick, something you can get in between here just to kind of help loosen it up. If not, you can undo the cables from like the bracket up here. And for the most part, you might get a little bit of room where you can move it around a little bit. But if you want everything completely off, you're going to want to take these off. But be very, very careful with these two plugs right here, because they're almost glued inside. So let's see here. See if I can get one off while I'm sitting right here. But you really don't want to pull on the wires. See if I can get this worked around. Kind of demonstrate how big of a pain they are. You can see someone's been in here before. They've had little pry bars in there. Probably because once you get it off, yeah, there it goes. It's wiggling. See? There we go. All of that's there. And you can see that little goo that's on the end of that plug. It kind of turns into like almost like a glue after a while. And it is so. It makes it tough to get out of there. That's why it's very important. Do not pull on the wires. Now that guy's out. Let's see if I can wiggle this one off too. See all the little marks and stuff right here. Someone has done it already. So this one's going to be probably a little bit easier to get out. Maybe I have. All right, I got a little regular screwdriver here. See if I can help get this guy out. There we go. It's slowly moving. You just want to take your time. If you can use the body of the plug itself, that is the best route, because you will cause all kinds of problems if you separate or break these wires in here and pull them out of their little sockets. There we go. There you go. See that glue stuff? That's what I'm talking about. Now, it may be some kind of grease or something, but after so many years, it turns into like a glue and just makes things very, very difficult. Kind of nicked our little seal right there, but not all the way through, so it should still be okay. So we got those undone. We'll go ahead and disconnect our loom from this bracket up here, get that out of the way, and just kind of tuck everything up on top of our lines. That way our fuel lines here will hold our loom up in place and try to keep it out of the way from up here, and we don't pinch it when it comes time to putting our transmission back in place. So once I got all of those lines out of the way, I'm going to go around. We got these two bolts on the bottom here. And we got 1, 2, there's a third one way up in the corner. I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up. but it's what holds that bracket. There it is. See it sneaking around. So you're going to have a nut right there. Once that nut's off, you can pull that bracket out of the way. And then behind that bracket is another 15 millimeter transmission bolt, a lot like that guy right there. We'll get those three out of the way. And then we have the two right here. Find my flashlight. So we got one right there, and then we're gonna have one right there. So that one's missing the nut, and that nut there holds the bracket to our fill tube for our transmission. So you're gonna wanna get that nut off, get that fill tube out of the way, and then you can remove that 15 millimeter bolt from there, and that is going to completely disconnect the transmission from the back of our engine. But before you get too far, you get all the bolts out, you're going to want to make sure you get a floor jack with a piece of wood, a board, one of these guys, transmission jacks here underneath that transmission to support it, because you do not want to remove all the bolts without it being supported. Otherwise, that transmission is just going to fall out. So always make sure you got everything supported. You're going to want to have a nice, good support underneath your oil pan there, holding the engine up. You're going to want a transmission jack of some sort underneath the transmission before removing all of the bolts. That just kind of helps prevent everything from crashing down on you. So I'm going to get up underneath there. I'm going to finish undoing that wire loom, get it tucked up on top of our fuel lines there. Then I'm going to get this floor jack underneath and get our bolts out of the transmission so we can pull that thing and get that torque converter out and see if our torque converter seal is in fact the issue. So I'm going to get all that done and I'll be right back. All right, our wiring harness is undone. I have it tucked up on top of our fuel lines here. Went ahead and also removed almost all of our bolts in the transmission. If you look up there, that bracket is undone. Boom. We got the bolt out here. The only bolts I have holding this transmission in place right now are this one here and the same one on the opposite side of our transmission. But before I got the transmission jack under here, I wanted to make sure that I included this little part. Now, we've got our shift cable still attached to the side of our transmission, and in order to get that shift cable off, you can get yourself a little regular screwdriver or one of these. I picked this up off of, let's see here, what is the name of this thing? I believe I got it from the local auto parts store. Cowhawk, or off of eBay. I'm not 100% sure, but this tool here is a lifesaver when it comes to stuff like this, removing bumper clips and door panel clips. But this little guy here, you can get right up underneath this, just like that. It's kind of hard to do one-handed, but wiggle her back and forth. Boom. You can see it pops right off of this little guy here. It just snaps into place. It's got like a little plastic style retaining clip. And then you come back here. Now, normally this would have a little metal horseshoe looking hook that slides into this guy here and that guy up on top. It keeps these guys from being pressed, but this cable is missing it. So, but once that little clip is out, you can just press these guys here. Start with the top, then the bottom, pull till you get to that little neck down spot on the cable. That guy is out of the way. We're just going to throw him up there for right now. So all of this stuff is disconnected from this side of the transmission. We go over here to the co-pilot side, and you're going to have these guys right here. We're going to have our cooler lines. Now, I've already gone ahead and disconnected the one that's up on top there. But if you look at the bottom one, you're going to see there's a little clip in there. Now I'm going to try my hardest to get in there and show you guys a little bit. This is really, really difficult to do with one hand, but get yourself one of these guys here. Yeah. That's going to help you get underneath this little clip. So, but you get underneath there, you can get this underneath. There's another spot on the end there. Let's see here. Trying really hard to get this guy off on video. There we go. Try to hold on to it, because you thought finding a 10mm was bad. Try finding that thing when it goes fling. So that's what it looks like. Both those lines have them out. And then all you got to do now is just grab it with your hand, wiggle it, pull straight out of there. Then our cooler lines are disconnected. And just so I have it documented on camera, this little clip is in there, along with its friend. So, now that I've got all that disconnected and undone, I'm going to put our transmission jack underneath our transmission pan, get those last two 15mm bolts out, drop the transmission, and I'll bring you guys right back. We'll pull the torque converter out and inspect that front seal. All right, the transmission is out. Torque converter is on the ground. Now our little snout here on our torque converter looks to be in pretty decent shape. There's a little, like a shiny line or a polished line right there, but I can't feel it with my thumb, so this guy is still in pretty good shape. The torque converter looks fairly new, like it's been replaced. So torque converter is on the ground. If you get in here and look at our seal, you can kind of see that inner lip there, because you can see this outer lip, but it also has an inner lip, or it's supposed to, and that one is almost non-existent. It's really hard to tell with this lighting setup I got. But if you get in here, our inner seal is almost not there. It's pretty flat, versus if we were to look at this one here. So if I come back, you can see that inner part of that seal. If you look at it straight on, you can see it's smaller than the outside, kind of like the dust cover part of it. So it's made to grab a hold of the snout of our torque converter really, really tight. And if you look at this one, it is almost non-existent, like it ain't even there. It is flat, almost. It might be missing a spring in there or something, so that seal definitely has to be replaced. Also, I've got evidence of someone else being in here, because silicone on pump bolts isn't a normal thing. So I'm going to try to eliminate that as being a possibility by removing one of those bolts one at a time. I just so happen to have a set of washers or gaskets for those bolts from a previous overhaul. So I'm going to go ahead and pull each one of those out one by one, clean all the silicone off, and then replace the gaskets. To eliminate that as a problem. Glasses are fogging up. So if you can't tell how the temperature is out here right now. So, let's see. Now, let's get that seal out. Before I leave you real quick, we're going to go ahead and here's that cage that I showed you on that other transmission I have sitting over there. You can get under behind one of these ears with a screwdriver. Sometimes you can pop them off by hand. All it is a little metal cage. Kind of helps retain that seal in place. I've got a regular screwdriver here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I just can't pop that out. I don't have to get too aggressive with it, but yeah. But I can't do it with one hand. I'm gonna go ahead and just grab my little hammer. You can take this regular screwdriver here and kind of smack it, take a hammer, smack the end of it to get up underneath that lip. Try not to dig into the case though, and pop it out. And they also have seal removers with that look like an anchor that go up underneath the seal and pop these things right out. So But I do not own one of those. I've always just used a regular screwdriver, was able to pop it out. It's just real difficult to do one hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that seal popped out, and then we'll get it out here in the light and double check that inner lip. All right, got our old seal out, almost in near perfect shape, perfect condition, can't even tell. So here is our new seal we'll be installing, and if you look at it real close, you'll see that inner lip there. So you have this outer lip, I call kind of like a dust seal part. It keeps anything from wanting to enter into our pump on our transmission. And then this inner lip, as you can see, it goes towards the inside there, and it has that little spring. Kind of helps keep everything tensioned, keeps this seal tensioned against the snout of our torque converter. And if you look at it, you can see that it's definitely smaller. It's a definitely noticeable difference. So that inner seal is going to have a nice tight seal against our torque converter. And if you look at this guy, and it's a lot like it was when it was in the truck when I tried showing you, but this seal here this inner part was almost flat. Like I could barely tell it was there. Plus it's really, really hard. So it has seen a lot of heat cycles, which is kind of funny because there's tales of somebody being in there. Silicone on the pump bolts is not a normal thing. So someone has definitely been in there and they just didn't replace that front seal. It may not have been leaking at the time, and it wasn't leaking for a while, actually. He's been driving this truck around for quite a bit, and it just started leaking a few weeks ago. So, but if you're going to pull a transmission out, my tip is whatever seal you can replace, just go ahead and replace it. It's cheap insurance. So, but I've already gone ahead, pulled each one of those pump bolts out, cleaned all the silicone off them, replaced the gaskets, got them all torqued back up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a really, really thin film of silicone around this guy. Most of it's going to get wiped anyways as I'm tapping it into the case, and it's going to be resting up against this lip here. But it's kind of an insurance policy for me. Just a really, really, you don't want gauze of it on there. Just a really, really light film. Just enough to barely notice it's there. We'll get that pounded back in the case, reinstall that cage there, get that torque converter back in place, and then reverse the whole process of getting the transmission out. So I'm going to go ahead, clean up that lip, get this guy back installed, and I'll see you guys here after I get the transmission back in the truck. We'll fire it up, put fluid in it, and see if we've even fixed the problem or it's got to be tore apart for something else. So what's going to be a second for you guys, going to be a little bit for me. So I'll be right back. All right, seal has been replaced. Our little end cage has been reinstalled. And since I was here, I went ahead and just replaced our lockup seal as well. I mean, we're already here and we might as well, and I had it. So all of our gaskets have been replaced on the bolts. New torque converter seal, new lockup seal. So now it's time to put our torque converter back in. And I'm going to hand you off to Seth, who's going to try to duck up underneath this side of the truck here and record, because this is an important part of installing the torque converters in these transmissions. So let me see if I can get to a point where I can sit up, which is kind of difficult, but somewhat easier because I'm a shorter guy. So, all right, get our torque converter. Still has fluid in place. And if you've ever taken one of these guys out, you know they are heavy. All right. Okay. Whew. Now, go ahead and grab some fluid, put it around our snout here because we do not want to damage our freshly installed seal. That's good. Chances are I'm going to dump transmission fluid all over the place. That's what I do. Okay, now torque converter's in. You're going to want to shake, whoop, install. That one dropped. There. Heard that good solid thud. and I felt 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. Now the most important thing is, and it's easier to do it over here where the starter goes, if you can kind of come around and show them where the starter's at.
Yep.
Okay. If you can fit your hand behind, in between the torque converter and the case through this hole right here, torque converter is not all the way in. Keep shaking it, keep turning it, get it to sit. But this thing fell in all the way. And you can almost, I can hear it kind of just tap the case a little bit. So that is definitely all the way in. Now what I'm gonna do, just watch yourself. Go ahead and back up. Get my leg out of here. All right, let's see. All right, now that the torque converter is installed now, I felt that was a good time, especially since our sidekick showed up for a little bit. That's definitely a most important thing. Sometimes people with, if you don't get the torque converter all the way in, it binds up on that front pump. You'll break the pump. You'll have excessive pressure on your crankshaft. It wipes out the thrust bearings in both transmission and engine. So, I mean, it could be very, very costly. So listen for the 3 clicks when you're installing the torque converter. And my biggest thing is, if you can still fit your hand on the back side of the torque converter, in between the torque converter and the case, you are not all the way in. So always double check that. But torque converter's in. Now at this point, it is exactly reverse procedure of getting everything out. No, I said it once, but I'm gonna go ahead and do everything reverse, get everything installed in the truck, get it on the ground, and I'll bring you guys back to the point of putting in our transmission fluid, firing this thing up, and seeing whether or not any of these little repairs fixed the initial problem. So I'll be right back. All right, transmission has been reinstalled in the truck. Everything is hooked back up. Battery's been hooked back up, and I put about 1.5 quarts of transmission fluid in it. Probably gonna need more because it's all over the floor and all over me. So, but let's see if this thing will, whoops. This thing will fire up. Let's see if we get any drips out of the bottom of this transmission. Because if we do, I'm burning this truck to the ground. No, I'm kidding. Oh, that didn't sound good. Okay, I have a leak, but where's the leak from? That sounded like a freaking transmission line to the side of the transmission. And not from the torque converter. Let's see. Yep, that's from the side of the torque. That is from the side of the transmission, so let me get that fixed. I'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. I'm gonna tell you, it's been a couple days since I had that little leak. The leak was, in fact, it was the pressure side of our transmission lines going to the cooler. I didn't have it snapped all the way in, so I wiggled it, snapped it in there because it gets held in by a flared end on a little keeper. So I snapped that back in, fired the truck up, and yet, well, we still had a leak coming from our little inspection covers on the bell housing. So the next possible scenario, or the next possible reason why this thing would be leaking would be, to me, a front pump seal. Now there are different, the way the front pumps mount in these transmissions are all they're real similar. If you're before 98, you get a one-piece case. So, and I believe that case is a little bit longer. And after 98 to present, the 4060Es, they're a little bit of a shorter case. The bell housing gets removed, and then you can pull the pump off. But in between those two different, from like 98 to 03, I believe. And you're gonna have to look up the years. I only know what I know because I've been tearing these things apart and trying to figure out how to fix them because it's a lot cheaper. but I do believe, I think it's 98 or 99. The pump is this pump right here. So this is the 2-piece. You see we got the pump out. I did pull the transmission out, all the same steps, except for there are a couple added steps, and I'm going to show you guys here in a second. But this pump here is kind of like the earlier style pump where it has the O-ring in the side, like from even the 700R4 has this O-ring right here. This O-ring goes in the side and it sits on a paper gasket. Here is our old O-ring and our old paper gasket. So I could do a side-by-side comparison. Those I did have. This pump, this transmission's been replaced with something else, and I wasn't quite sure the year, so to save me some time, I went ahead and ordered the newer style pump seal that comes on these transmissions. And it eliminates the O-ring on the side, going into the side of the pump. The case of the pump is a little bit different. And I'm going to show you guys here. So here's the side of this pump. This is a 2004 4L60E transmission. And it has no groove in the side for the O-ring. It still has the paper gasket. And then it has a spot here. You can see the case is beveled. And that is for this guy right here. This is a rubber bonded O-ring. So it gets put in the case like a big seal. Because, I mean, it's like a big one-piece seal. So you can see the rubber on one side. You got the lip on here. Seals everything up. So that's the difference between those two pumps. Now, like I said, there is pulling the transmission, pulling it all out and everything was a lot like, well, it was the same for when we got to changing out the torque converter snout or the pump, the torque converter seal to the pump. But if you're going one step farther like I am now and pulling the pump out of it, doesn't matter what year it is for these 4L6, because you have to drop the pan. So you got to get the pan out of the way. Next thing is you're going to want to get your filter, which would go right up in here. And that's where this part of the pump sits. So when this guy goes in, we're going to set him in here just for visual purposes. Boom. So bolts are all lined up. Here's where your filter would go in. So your filter would be plugged in here, comes across, covers the whole bottom side of our valve body here. So you're going to want to get that off. Next, you're going to want to take off, here it is this guy right here. So this guy would sit in here, and it's got a little keeper. You can just wiggle this around. This will kind of show a little bit of an end on it. You can get a flat, little, really small flathead screwdriver to get in there, pull it out, or a little pick and pull it out. See if I can find our, yep, there it is. So this is what the keeper looks like, and it snaps right in there. So you get a little screwdriver in there, you pull this keeper out, at which, once that's out, you can pull this guy up out of the way. Once he's out of the way, you're going to find, get him, you're going to find this guy right here. Now this is your torque converter lockup solenoid. You're going to want to pull two 10mm bolts out. So you got a 10 there and a 10 here. You're going to pop that guy out. That pulls them out of this spot of our front pump. Once our filter and our torque converter lockup solenoid is removed from the bottom of our case, all of these bolts, which are 15s, can be removed, and then you can remove the pump. There's nothing else really in its way. So now this is a 2004, like I said, 4L60E. This one is a 93, so you can see the 93 is a one-piece case, and this transmission is a little bit longer than the two-wheel drive 4L60E transmissions, or the after 94 or 5. Like I said, you're gonna have to look it up. I'm not really good with years. I just know there are differences. 04 has the impregnated pump seal. I did know that, and I wasn't sure what transmission was in that truck. It's an 01 because it's been played with before. Things have been changed. It's not the original engine. Transmission's been changed out with something else, so save me a headache. I just ordered up that seal, so I had it just in case, but ended up being the pre-04. So So that's what we got. The next thing I was looking at too, because I have an extra torque converter sitting here, I was taking a little bit more time inspecting everything because I didn't really see too much of a problem with this gasket. At first I thought maybe these little guys here, these little lines, splits were a problem, but they're pretty uniform and they're on each one of the bolt holes. So I'm assuming this is just a bolt hole indicator. So this hole does not go, is not blind. This hole goes all the way through and leaks to the case, but if that was a problem, it'd leak past this paper gasket and then have to get past this O-ring. But this O-ring is a little bit hard, but not terribly bad. But we're gonna go ahead and swap it out with a brand new O-ring and a new gasket just in case. The biggest thing I was looking at is, if you look here, this is a factory torque converter. So you see, you can get down in here, it's all nice and smooth. Everything looks pretty darn good. Everything looks nice. When I get over here, and I keep wiping this thing, but I keep getting fluid showing up in here. And if I look really close, let's see, maybe if I can find a flashlight, here we go. You can kind of see under the weld there, doesn't look great. Now, I've heard horror stories of these torque converters getting micro cracks. I see almost right there. Now that I have a light on, it looks like it might be leaking. Might be a crack. This might have been our problem the entire time. So, as you can see how the weld looks versus our factory one. This one's all has been smooth. If it's welded, it'd have to be. And then everything's been turned, smoothed out, checked. This one looks like it was just thrown together and put in a box and shipped out the door. I'm not sure the brand of this. It was in the transmission already, but luckily, yeah, see, that does. That looks, especially when you get it right there, kind of you can see underneath. So I'm going to be changing that guy out as well with my supposedly good factory torque converter. It came with that other transmission over there, and I did test fit the pump in it, so everything feels good. And it has the same size snout or input shaft, which I believe is a 300 millimeter versus the older version, which is a 298. If I'm wrong, please put it in the comments, because I do not want to spread a bunch of misinformation out there. Like I said, I'm just showing this stuff, kind of some of the things I go through. And somewhere in here, I have a book. You're going to want to get yourself... Oh, see, nope, that's Ford. But I'm going to do a lot of other people do. I'm just going to go up on the internet there, searching torque specs. I might even have a torque spec sheet for some of the stuff in here. Let's see. Oh, yep, here we go. Right here. See, I just gotta look a little bit. So, put this on the ground here real quick. Find. Yep, we got torque diagrams for our check balls, earlies, 87s, 90s. Okay, let's see here. What do we got? Okay, so if you're gonna do the same thing I'm doing right now, here's the torque specs I have. Show you guys that right there. Kind of come in on it a little bit. Left it there for a few seconds. You guys could pause the video, screenshot it, whatever you need to do. Now this is kind of a, this is 4L60, 4L60E transmissions. I'm not 100% sure of the years. I just know that most of the torque specs are kind of universal for like the valve bodies, pumps, oil pans, stuff like that. So, and we're not diving too deep into this transmission. So I'm going to go ahead and install our new paper gasket, get our new O-ring installed on our torque converter, get all that stuff slid back in. I've already gone over the procedure once before on checking and making sure your torque converter sits all the way in. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing slapped back together as quickly as I can while I still have daylight outside. Get some fluid put back in this truck. fire it up and just cross my fingers that we have figured out the leak. I'm almost certain it is that torque converter because of the way that weld looks, but I have another one here. We're changing it out. So let's get this thing put back together, get it on the ground, and see if we got it fixed. Truck is all put back together. Battery is hooked up. It is on the ground, and I've gone ahead and put, I want to say, roughly 4 quarts in it. It's probably going to take a little bit more than that, but at least this way, it's got some fluid in the pan to suck up through the filter. The torque converter did have fluid in it, so it might take 1 or 2 more. But right now, let's go ahead and fire this thing up. We're going to let it run for a minute. Go ahead and hop in here. See here. Everything's good to go. Alright, everything's good. Battery's charging. Temp is cold. Got pretty good oil pressure. So, truck is running. I'm going to go ahead and get on. Oh, got my flashlight right here. Let's go ahead and get over here on the other side, get my little roller bed here, and we're gonna jump up underneath. Now normally it would have been leaking already, so we'll be watching from these 2 holes right here, and so far we are doing okay. I don't hear any unnecessary rattling. Hello, little guy. Been dodging these guys all night. So we're doing good. Go ahead and see how many quarts I have in it. Let's just see if it reads. Now, a lot of times too, you gotta let them sit for a little while because the transition fluid will just kind of hang out in the tube itself. Let's see what we got here. Says we got nothing. All right, put a couple more quarts in it, let it sit for a few minutes, let it warm up, and I'll bring you back. All right, fluids are topped off. Transmission is good. Truck is all warmed up. We get underneath here, and you can see we have no new drips coming from our inspection covers. There are little inspection plates. So I can go ahead and reinstall those, put those back in our transmission. And in the morning, we'll go ahead and get this thing out of the shop, take it on a test drive, see if it still has all its gears or not. I hope it does, because this was a lot of work if it does not. But he said he was on the highway. When he was driving it, he'd seen smoke. He pulled over right away. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he stopped before smoking all the gears. And so yeah, go ahead, shut this thing down, get myself cleaned up. And I'll see you guys back here in the morning, take this truck out, and see if it still has all its gears. Good morning. Got the truck on the ground, double checked all the fluids. Everything is still good. Had to put some air in the tire. We're taking it on a quick little test drive. Can't go far because there's no plate on it. But I should have enough room to make sure we go through all the gears. So I know first works because that's the gear we're in. I know reverse works because I got it out of the shop. So just pop it and drive. We got first. There's second. Third gear. So far we've got 1 through 3. That's good. Like I said, I'm really hoping he got it pulled over in time. He says he did, so. There's a kick down. There we go. We got all the gears. So that is awesome. what we had to do to this truck was, I mean, definitely to the extreme. Probably could have definitely saved myself a little bit of time, because I am 100% convinced this morning that it was the snout on the torque converter. That little weld has a crack in it somewhere, because I wiped it dry last night. I came back into the shop this morning and it had fluid in it again. So definitely the torque converter. So, but all the same steps are the, you know, apply to if you're going to change out the torque converter seal. Definitely went up one step and above to change the pump gasket and seal to eliminate that as a problem. I figured since I had this transmission out for the second time, I'm changing everything, because I do not want to do it again. And if it continued to leak, well, then there would be a crack in the case somewhere. So, but I'm glad that wasn't the case. I'm glad we were able to get this thing fixed. All of the gears are still here. I'll go ahead and get this thing pulled over to the side up here, get her out of the road, hop up underneath the truck and see if we've got any leaks. All right, hop under the truck. And everything is looking good. Might be a little residual right there on the corner, because I didn't get all of the fluid out of our torque converter, or our bell housing, when installing this torque converter. But other than that, I don't see any transmission fluid pouring. This would be a big old puddle right here right now. So I can go ahead and successfully, or go ahead and say I have successfully fixed the leak we had on this transmission. And now we can put this truck, you can put this truck back on the road, continue to drive back and forth to work. So I'm happy. Now, like I said earlier, I mean, this truck happened to be kind of in the extreme scenario, or extreme cases, pulling the pump, changing the seal. Showed you I basically, even if this wasn't something you were going to take on yourself, you can at least now have the idea of what goes on when someone says they need to change a pump seal or the pump gasket. Or if you're looking up reasons why you have you leak up here and you can't figure it out, torque converter is definitely an option now. Like I said, that's the first time I've seen it. I haven't had those issues. It's usually just been the gasket. That's why we replaced it. That was the first thing we replaced. But it obviously happened, so. But it feels good. Truck's done. I can give it back to him. He can continue driving it around now. He can drive it around again. But hope this helps some of you guys out. Hope this helps explain some of the process or what goes on when someone's changing something like that. And if you plan on tackling it yourself, I hope there is enough information down there. And if I messed up any of the years, or you have other reasons why something like this would happen, please put it in the comments. That way people can read it, help others out. So, but thank you guys again for hanging out. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the support. Give a guy a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you on the next one.